This summer, history swings back to life.
Come fly with me, let's fly away.
Friday, July 25th at 9 p.m. Resorts Casino Hotel and Soundplex Records presents
You're just too marvelous for words.
The Lost Sinatra-Basie.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Visible Kindness. I've got Brandon Tomasello with me today, and this is a story, I don't even know how we're going to do this in one episode. You have a passion for Frank Sinatra and a passion for that entire era. We've got a path to go on here today, and it'll be very interesting to see where it ends up.
Absolutely. It's great to be here. I have been singing professionally for 13 years. I started in Atlantic City, New Jersey, in the casinos, in a little 25-seat lounge at Resorts Casino, and with karaoke tracks, and eventually moved forward. A few months later, actually, we did the main room, the Superstar Theater. Here's my crazy dog interrupting me. So we did the uniqueness of the Superstar Theater is it's the same room Sinatra and everybody played. Down, Bubba. So we did all that, and then I started working with bands and musicians, and I really got a taste for wanting to have the original orchestrations. And I have been lucky to finagle ways of finding and getting a lot of the original orchestrations that Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis, that they all traveled with us. But it was a few years ago that I stumbled upon a collection at the Library of Congress that has a lot of things that Billy Byers had written for Sinatra and Count Basie. Everything Billy wrote. So I was able to get my hands on them, and in discovering them, we discovered 11 arrangements that Frank never did anything with. So we took them and we put them on an album, and we called it The Lost Sinatra-Basie. And now that's what we've been working towards promoting.
I would like to play a clip. If you haven't seen the episode where I had the whole team on there, you definitely got to take a look at that, and there'll be a click where you can go to that. And I played some content there. And instead of playing the when you're on the news in your hometown, which was it was such a great clip that they made. I'd like everybody to take a look at what you've been doing with what you've just said in the studio and with the band, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about that.
Absolutely.
You're just too marvelous for words. Like glorious, glamorous, and that old stand.
Oh, for me, how did it all begin?
Or even for your granddad.
Well, for him, it was obviously, that was the music that they listened to. But this picture, actually, my grandmother got that. She met him at the 500 Club in Atlantic City in 1955. She went there with Vivian Blaine. And there's Bill Miller, Frank's pianist. There's Frank. There's Vivian Blaine. And there's my grandmother. She got that autograph, and obviously you don't know what my grandmother looked like. That could be any woman, but there they are in 1958. I tell everybody that that's how it started.
Your sweet expression, the smile you gave me, the way you looked when we met. It's easy to remember, but so hard to forget.
We are not at a deficit for music.
I'll always love you. I know it's over, and yet.
And you need to understand, this is all handwritten. So nowadays, when we get a chart, like if you look at anything that was written for me, it's all computer. And it looks like this, but to have the handwritten, and these are copies of what he traveled with. They said, how did you come across these? And I said, I was bored. Billy May wrote an overture that I believe was called the Big Band Overture for Frank. And I had typed in Billy May arrangements. There's a Billy May collection at Library of Congress. And then I started looking, wait, if they have Billy May, so I typed in Nelson Riddle, Billy Byers, and your dad's came up with the biggest collection. And I looked through it and wrote down everything, and that's when I thought, I got no shot of getting into the Library of Congress. They're not going to give me. They just don't give you. Usually have to have research or whatever. So I called a friend of mine, Tom Knox, and I said, "Do we have a connection at Library of Congress?" And he said, "I'm on the board." He hooked me up with the woman that runs the music department, and she said, "Just email me. We can scan them for you." And here they are.
So where is that studio that you were in? Where is that?
So that's the Soundplex Studios in Pennsauken, New Jersey, and it's a great room because it's a huge open room. So we were able to record this the right way by putting the full big band in one room, and me off to the side in an isolation booth singing with the band. There's not many studios around where you can fit all of them in one room. There are some where you put the rhythm section in one room and the horns in another, but that tends to create a little bit too sterile of a sound for what I like. You know, you listen to Sinatra or Basie, that technology didn't exist when they were recording. Everybody was in one room. Everybody was bleeding in everybody's microphone. So although it sounds clean, it doesn't do the music any justice. It's too perfect, and you don't want that. At least we didn't want that.
So you have that album out, right?
Yes, the Lost Sinatra-Basie.
You think I would know better? It's like I just met your team about a month ago, and I'm so glad I did, because it's put a path in front of my life that I'm very excited to be a part of with what's coming up. I think it'd be great to focus on the event coming up on July 25th, and tell us about that event, what you're going to do, and what is coming out of that event. It is really something that is phenomenal that you're doing. It's beyond the just, hey, I'm doing this event thing. It's really quite something it's going to make a difference, literally, in our culture with what you're doing.
Sure. Well, in discovering those arrangements, and I should say that all of the arrangements we found pertaining to Sinatra and Basie were written for Sinatra's Live at the Sands album, which I'm sure everybody knows. It was his first true live album. And we got our hands on all of them. And when, like I said, we found those 11 unheard arrangements that had not been looked at, played, heard in 60 years. So we put them on the album, and the idea for the show is to do the Live at the Sands show, but take certain songs out, some that wouldn't pertain to, I'm not old enough to sing a song like It Was a Very Good Year, or a song like The September of My Years.
Right.
And, I can't. Sinatra also does a really long, 8-minute monologue, which, Sinatra could do 3 songs and then talk for the rest of the hour, and people would love that show. Now, I can't get away with that. So we can fit a lot more music in the show. So we're basically taking the Sands show, removing the songs that would make no sense for me to do, and replacing them with the songs from the album. So it's almost like the Sands What Could Have Been, had he chosen different songs. And the reason we're doing it at Resorts Casino is this whole thing, the album and the shows, it's all about the history of Frank Sinatra music, specifically to shrink it down to that particular era of his career in the summer of 1965. So Resorts was the first casino to open in Atlantic City outside of Las Vegas. So that was 1978. And of course, Frank Sinatra performed there. Basie performed there. Sammy Davis. I mean, everybody played there. There's a reason the theater is called the Superstar Theater. So I figured it's a history piece. And all of these songs were written to be performed in a casino at the Sands. So I figured we need to do it in a casino. So why not do it at Resorts, where Sinatra has a history, but on top of that, I have a history. That's where my history started. I mean, I've played pretty much almost all of the casinos in Atlantic City, But Resorts was where it started, and to me, it's like a homecoming. So it's just everything has come full circle. We have these unheard arrangements that haven't been played or heard in 60 years, and in a room, in probably the only existing room in Atlantic City that Sinatra has played, and the room that gave me my start.
There's a lot more. So what you've just said, I'm sitting here going, I'd love to be at that event. I'd love to be at that event. But there's something you're doing that's coming out of that event. Let me ask you, so this is a great event, but there's something more that you're not saying, which is mind-boggling. What you're telling me so far is incredible. What you're doing and the purpose of this is an incredible thing that's coming out of it. Can you share that with us?
Oh, yeah. I tend to get distracted with the show. But the whole time, while we were recording the album, George Cook, my producer / manager, who also owns the Soundplex, he got Art Citron involved. And Art's an Emmy-winning editor. And Art has been filming a full-length documentary from start to finish.
Unbelievable.
So this
Incredible.
documentary basically follows the process of getting the charts, doing the album, then doing the album launch show, which was basically like the seed show. Now, this one in Atlantic City is the big one. So the whole documentary is going to conclude with bringing the charts, finally having them done in a casino. And we're trying to raise money via a crowdfunding campaign. And that's how we came to find you, because you know how to market and do all that stuff. All I know how to do is walk on stage, have lights point at me, and sing.
That's incredible. That's incredible. I love to serve people. I love to help. Kindness is my thing. That's what my podcast is all about. We have two things that are up and running. One is there's two crowdfunders that are coming up, one in a row. So the first one is coming up the night that you're performing. I'll be like backstage. I keep thinking of it. It's like being
Entertainment Tonight.
Like Entertainment Tonight. I'll be doing all of this stuff behind the scenes and running around filming stuff and then launching that first crowdfunder. And people will see the opportunity to give into what you're doing. So between now and then, starting like right away, right now with this podcast, I'll be promoting across all my platforms the help that we need to make this happen and why it's so important. Yes. That's one thing. And then the other one, to bring into this opportunity investors that want to be a part of the documentary as in a legacy position with their contribution, and it's far beyond just donating to help us, but they become a legacy maker with us in the creating of this documentary. And
I don't even think it's just limited to the documentary. It's the whole thing.
Yes,
it takes the most money to do the documentary, but you can't do the documentary without doing the show. And the next step would be to take the show to Las Vegas, where it was originally intended to be done. Obviously, you can't do it at the Sands because they don't exist anymore. But to do them in Vegas would be like astronomical.
I feel like we're talking not even about it on the podcast anymore. We're just talking. So in the documentary, there's going to be a show in Atlantic City and then a show in Las Vegas?
Well, in the documentary, there's a show, the first show we did in Collingswood, New Jersey. And then it was Art's original idea was to shoot 3 shows and kind of intercut throughout the whole thing. And we kind of made it like, well, the crown jewel would be doing it at the Superstar Theater. But now that I have shifted gears and I'm like, well, maybe we should see if we could do this in Vegas. Because think about Vegas. There's a bunch of Frank Sinatra impersonator shows. We don't impersonate in any way. We wear the tuxedo. That's about it. We wear the tuxedo for authenticness, because we want to bring you back to that era of class where you came and you didn't see somebody with ripped jeans and a T-shirt standing on stage when you paid good money for your tuxedo for your tickets. That's why we wear the tuxedo. But what the hell was I saying?
What they're doing it in Las Vegas now? What is
there's so many people that do a Sinatra's type thing, and it's always usually impressions, or it's a Rat Pack show and they're doing impersonations. There is this is the only Sinatra show. I'm the only one that can do this particular show because aside from, and there's a lot of people that will say they have the original arrangements. There are a very select few that actually do have them. But I took it a step further, and I have ones nobody heard. So now we can give Las Vegas and Atlantic City, we can give them a Sinatra show that has never been done because it's got music that people have not heard. So there's it's something, it's not, I don't know if it's going to happen or ever will happen, but you can see that there's a hook.
Yeah.
So I would love to do it there. And it's just going to, if we do that, Art's going to be all over that.
Yeah, and if Art's going to be all over it, I'm going to be there with you.
That's right.
I got to get busy.
And, the importance of it, I feel, is you have Frank Sinatra, who was one of the greatest, if not the greatest,
absolutely,
singers of the 20th century.
Yeah.
And the greatest purveyor of this style of music, the Great American Songbook. So to have, and we all know his music and his arrangements, to have something that was done for him that has never been used, it helps introduce it to a newer generation. And I never got into singing because I wanted to become rich and famous and be a superstar. Obviously, you want to just be able to make a living. You don't need to have private jets and multi-million-dollar mansions. Of course, that's fun if you get to that status, but to just do what you love and make an honest living is fantastic. But the biggest reason, aside from me loving the music, the other reason is the music is too good to just die. And I see so many people doing things that it doesn't do the music any justice. Singing in a karaoke bar. That's not this music. You will see when you're there in July, and you can stand on stage with me during the rehearsal. When you have 14 horns blaring 4 feet from you, and the energy that you get from the whole band, that's how it's supposed to be done. So my goal is just to make sure it stays in front of everybody so that my children's great-great-grandchildren know who Frank Sinatra, Billy Byers, Ella Fitzgerald. I want, and I don't think it's going to ever go away because we all know who Beethoven is. So
yeah, Frank Sinatra is that unique in his era, with who he is and what he did. I'll never forget that. Whenever I have seen him on TV or heard him, I've always listened and watched. Always. Sure. I never thought, oh, this is amazing. But all of a sudden he's gone, and then it's just drifting away. And I love how you're bringing it back to life. I was just
we can't let that happen.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, and it's interesting because I have a 10-month-old baby boy.
Congratulations, by the way. That's so cool.
I have turned his little morning routine into watching Sinatra. And you would think a 10-month-old is going to want nothing to do with that.
Right.
And it's what's the word? It just goes to show you the magic of Frank Sinatra, because I'll give him a bottle in the morning and I'll put a Sinatra concert on and he'll be squirming and wiggling all over the place. And the second he hears that voice, he goes, and he stops and he will watch the whole thing.
Oh my gosh. That's incredible.
10 months old.
That's incredible. Yeah, that is really incredible. Because kids, I've seen other TikToks, of course, where kids will latch on to music when they're so young.
Yes.
And to have that happen with that kind of music is really cool. That's really, really cool.
It's just good music. So the whole point of this documentary is to show everybody what it takes to do that, what it takes to preserve the music, and anybody that jumps on board, you are helping. You're preserving the Sinatra Great American Songbook legacy.
I like that. Let me ask you a question, Brendan. As we're coming to a close, I like to ask everybody, because my podcast is all about kindness, and there's so much kindness about who you are and what you do. I love when I've watched almost all of your content that you've given me access to, which has been really great. And I love how you the idea of giving legacy to your children's children. But let me just ask you a question, just off the top of my head. It's not top of my head, but it's that you weren't ready for. Is, kindness towards yourself and kindness to others is like, oh my God, it's like desperately needed everywhere today. And
Sure.
if you could share with us anything, it may or may not have anything to do with exactly what we're talking about here, but something that grabs you when I say, what act of kindness is either something that you like to do just in your daily routine, whatever you're doing when you go out and you're in public, or you're talking to people shopping, or you're walking your child, or is there something in the world of kindness that you'd like to really make an impact with what you're doing? And I've heard some of that, but it's kind of a big, kind of a mixed up question, but I kind of do that on purpose to hear what comes out from my guests when it comes to what they'd like to do, or what they've done, or what they're doing that's making a difference or can make a difference.
Well, think of this. I get to go out on stage for 90 minutes and sing to all those people that bought a ticket to see the show. Those people have problems. Those people, whether they're rich, whether they're poor, for some people, it's easy to buy that ticket. For some people, it's like, I want to go to that show, and they have to save up to purchase the ticket. And I always think of the people when we plan these things, because I don't want to charge $200-$300 for someone to come see the show. I don't need to make that much of a profit off of somebody. But back to my point, I get to go out there and make them all forget about that they have to pay their mortgage, that their aunt or uncle or grandparent or mother or father is sick, that they have any of their worries. For those 90 minutes, it's my job to distract them from that, and they're just there listening to good music, occasionally getting a laugh if I can be funny. And that's something I learned from Sinatra. Your whole thing is all about visible kindness. Well, you can bring that back to Frank, because Frank would be sitting in a hotel room, sitting at his house, and he'd have the news on, and he'd hear a story about a family who's just lost their house in a fire, or the father was a fireman and died unexpectedly. He'd hear that stuff, and he'd get right on the phone, and he'd call his accountant, and he'd say, I just saw this news story on this news channel. Call the station, figure out who they are, send them $25,000.
Oh my gosh!
Don't
I didn't know that.
Don't let them know where it came from.
And don't let them know where it came from.
He had multiple companies, so Frank Sinatra could send you money, and it wouldn't say Frank Sinatra at the top. It would just or another story that we did a show once with Frank's opening act, Tom Dreesen. And Tom tells this great story where they were, I think it was Chicago, that doesn't matter, but they were leaving, and this woman is just screaming for him as he's going to the limo, and he gets in the limo, and she's just hysterical, trying to get his attention, and he gets out, and he walks over to the woman and says, "Can I help you?" And she says, "Mr. Sinatra, it's such an honor to meet you. Can you sign this for my husband? He has been looking forward to this show for months, and he fell ill, and he's in the hospital and couldn't come." And Frank said, "Absolutely." And he's signing the thing, and he's writing, "To my pal," whatever his name is, "the hope to see it, the next one." And she's making small talk with him, and she says, "Oh, those are beautiful cufflinks." And he says, "Thank you." And he continues signing. When he's done, he hands her the picture, and he's talking to her. And as he's talking to her, he's taking the cufflinks off. And he hands them to her. And she says, no, I can't take them.
Oh, my gosh.
I can't take... He said, "No, you give them to your husband and say they're from his pal."
Oh, my gosh. Because she said, those are nice.
He said, "You give them to your husband and say they're from your pal friend." He got in the limo, and Tommy looked at him and said, "Boss." And he just bought the cufflinks. They were like $20,000 cufflinks. He says, "They were your favorite. What?" And Frank looked at him and said, "Listen, if I can't, first of all, we're only renting here. We're not here. This is just a lease. The other thing is, if I can't give something away to someone to make them happy or make them feel good, that thing owns me. And that's not going to happen. And that's just how he was. And everybody wants to perpetuate that bad guy mob thing that I'm so against, because that's not what he was. That is in no way what his character is. Did he have a temper? Yes. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
You know, but he was I never met him. I got to hang out with Frank Sinatra Jr. and I heard stories from Jr. He was a kind man. He was all about helping the little guy. And the other thing I mentioned, we wearing tuxedos. Tommy Dreesen said that to him. How come we always wear tuxedos? And Frank said to him, if we go do a show for the Queen of England, what are we going to wear?
Tuxedo.
He said, tuxedo. He said, okay, so when we go do Atlantic City and we're playing for the average American, what makes them different than the king or queen or the president? Or they paid good money to see the show. The president or the queen most likely didn't pay to see a show. He said, so we do it out of respect for them. So the short answer to your question is I get to go out and make people hopefully feel happy and forget their troubles for an hour and a half.
Oh, you do. You absolutely do, man.
Coolest thing in the world.
I'm overwhelmed with the opportunity to be with your team and you. I look forward to meeting you on the 25th. I look forward to being backstage and going live on Facebook and live on YouTube and going, hey everybody, we need your help. I'm going to be donating. I'll donate.
Well, here's the thing: when you're back there, it hasn't changed since 1978. And this will be my 50th headlining show in that room.
Incredible.
And you just need to, I always go back there and I always take a step back and think, my God, think of who walked this hallway.
Right.
Whether it's, Sinatra, Joan Rivers, Ella Fitzgerald, Tony Bennett. I mean, and the dressing room, it's the same dressing room that they all use. I mean, it's just, and I recognize the responsibility and the weight on my shoulders there too.
Right.
So, but just for you, keep in mind, you're there. I equate it to like visiting the White House.
Yeah. I can see that. There's no doubt. When I first met Art and he did a show with me just a few days ago, and an Emmy award-winning filmmaker. It's such a nice guy, and so you're both you just such nice people. I look forward to doing an episode with George as well coming up here.
Oh, George is the best. Without George, this would never have happened.
It's quite the team.
George was I'm all about just performing and going and singing and doing a good show, whereas George really is the business sense that keeps me in line. And I really couldn't do any of this without George, because we bounce back and forth with each other, and I'll tell him, I might be nervous about ticket sales or something, and George is always just relax. This is what we're doing. This is how it's going to work. And he was the mastermind between bringing these charts to the public, because I had them for 4 years before we did anything with them.
Wow. It's incredible. I think it was great having all three of you on that one episode we did last week as well. I feel like maybe the guy who should be carrying your luggage, from your from your room, to your car. But here I am. I'm on I'm running these campaigns, marketing, and I'm so grateful to be with all of you. It really is a huge blessing to be around you, and I look forward to being there.
We're glad to have you, and something I will talk about in the show on the 25th, Dennis Gomes, who was the CEO and owner of Resorts when I started, he's the one that got me my start and put me in the theater. Dennis's key to success was love. It's all about love and respect. And the biggest lesson he taught me, we were walking through the hallways of Resorts. Now, here's a guy, he's the president, CEO, and owner of the building. And he goes, the most important thing you can ever learn is, I don't care if you're talking to a casino executive or you're talking to the janitor. There's no difference between the two of them. They're human beings. They got families to feed. So you be nice to everybody, you show everybody respect, and you will be successful. And I watched him do that firsthand. We'd finished my first show, and he had all these big, I think they were Japanese investors there. And he introduced me to all of them. And literally a janitor was walking by, and he pulled the janitor aside to introduce me to the janitor. And I was like, wow, it all stems from things you've experienced in the past. So, nobody, you should not be the person carrying the luggage. We can all carry our own luggage. So don't say things like that.
Yeah. No,
that's something I learned from Dennis.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I really do. I appreciate it. And man, I want to thank you for being here. This has been great. I'm going to leave links to everything, about your website and everything we're doing. It's been a great time getting to know you and everybody on the team. And I'm looking forward to July 25th in Philadelphia. Not Philadelphia. I'm going to land in Philadelphia.
That's where you are.
You guys will pick me up, and then we'll go to Atlantic City at the Superstar Theater. And I'm just a Canadian boy from Prince George, and here I am
sitting in Frank Sinatra's dressing room.
So this is it. I'm like, what is going on? And I'm looking forward to it. So anyway, thanks again, man.
Thank you for having me.
We'll do more of these as the documentary rolls on too.
Absolutely.
And share with everybody what's happening and how the event went. So you're welcome as well, and thanks again.
Thank you, Ed. Pleasure to be here.